All right. Welcome to another episode of the Orlando Magic HQ collab with the Close-Up. Our man Anthony is on a well-deserved vacation right now, so we are doing a combo show of Al, Brett James, and myself, Stephen Cameron, and we are psyched to get into some basketball. A lot of hot stuff about to happen real quick in the basketball world with the season kickoff happening very soon. Brett, Al, how's it going, man? How your week's been? You guys psyched? How you feeling today? Al, what's going on? I'll kick it off with you.
Dude, I'm just excited. We finally get Magic basketball tomorrow. It's only been a week and a half, but it feels like it's been months.
Yes.
And of course, our first home game of the season. I know it's only preseason, but it feels like the season opener to me. I'm counting down. I'm so excited. So man, I'm just psyched about the game tomorrow. And of course, next week, of course, with the home opener coming up next Friday, season opener in Miami, which I'm actually going to be traveling to. So I'm
Nice.
excited, man. I just cannot wait to get this thing kicked off.
Brett, how you feeling, man?
Yeah, same over here. Same over here. I really couldn't be any more excited about this upcoming season. Obviously, home opener tomorrow evening at the Kia Center versus the 76ers. And regardless if it's preseason or regular season, I'm just happy everyone in the community, including myself, is back at the Kia Center, rocking out, supporting the Magic. And of course, it's going to be a phenomenal season as we all anticipate. So I couldn't be any more excited for tomorrow evening and just really looking forward to covering the team this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Today I was already calling a couple of friends, talking to my family about I'll be back in Florida in Orlando in a couple months for Christmas. And it's like, oh man, there's a lot of games to choose from right now. I can go to a Heat game. I could go to a Knicks game. I could go to a Nets game. I'm flying in the day the Magic play the Celtics, unfortunately. So I will miss that game, or I would be easily selecting that one. Talking to a friend, hey, let's get a road trip in. Which road game do we want to go to? So, I'm it took me a little while to kind of fully get into preseason. A couple of the preseason games hit on days where I just had some complications, so I didn't watch them live. I was watching a little bit on the replay, and of course getting excited, but it's really starting to hit that this team is really about to play some meaningful basketball in just a handful of days. So listeners, we are recording this late Thursday night, October 17th. You are hearing this most likely on Friday, October 18th, and we're really, really psyched. So before we get into the main topics of the conversation, let's just go ahead and take care of the housekeeping. Orlando Magic HQ and the Close-Up podcast is represented by Believe Podcast Network, and we are super psyched, and they help us with some really cool people the people who bring this podcast to you as well, our sponsors, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. It's really cool. So for those of you that don't know and aren't familiar with the California law where I currently reside, sports betting is really challenging. You can't use the traditional books like DraftKings and all that kind of stuff. You have to use a program like Bet Online, and it's been awesome. They have an app and a web browser, a website you can use, and they're both super functional and very easy. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, and NBA to to NBA political. I think they have a typo in this. I'm just going to admit that. Sorry, Bet Online, for screwing that up, but we're going to keep rolling. Whenever the game's over, head over to the online casinos and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slot games that they have. If you're into blackjack, you can go play it there. Head over to the website today and get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. We have another new and exciting thing I want to plug with you all. As you all know, last year we did some stuff with Brendan Kravitz. We are continuing that this year. You'll be able to hear us. We'll have a segment every pregame that Brandon Kravis hosts on 96.9 The Game. And because of that, we also want to support him and what he's doing. You can catch Brandon Kravitz on The Zone 5 days a week, talking about all the hottest sports topics in Orlando and beyond, live on 96.9 The Game and iHeartRadio. Also, if you're looking for more Magic coverage, Brandon will be hosting an extension of his show on game days. It's The Zone, Game Day Magic from 6:30 p.m. every weekday when the Magic play a game. That's also the days you will hear our segment that we have with Brandon Kravitz on 96.9 The Game. And if that's not enough, make sure to catch bonus content and exclusive interviews about the Magic, sports betting, fantasy, just about anything sports related that has to do with Orlando too, and also bigger than Orlando. You can catch that on Brandon Kravitz's podcast, the Zonehead Podcast. Download and subscribe to that wherever you are currently listening to this podcast. You can find it just about anywhere. It's pretty awesome. Fellas, I'm really excited about that. We have something else that I want to talk to you guys about before we get into the main topics. Today was a really exciting day for us, Al, and Brett, and everyone at the HQ. We redid our subscriber program. I'm not sure if you all were familiar. If not, where were you sleeping? Under a rock? We had a subscriber program with Instagram, and we admit that it didn't work out the way we wanted it to. We switched over to that last season, and it just had some technical limitations that didn't allow us to really feed into that program the way we wanted to. So we've switched back over to Patreon, where we have multiple different tiers for you to choose from. It's a way for you to support us. That money goes right back into the HQ system so we can do bigger and better things for you, like giveaways, and just get our access and our content out further. And there's two different tiers. The first tier is a $5 tier that gets you into our community chat and Discord, as well as get you entries into our giveaways. And then the second tier is $10, which gets you exclusive content from myself, Al, Anthony, and Brett James, from podcast written content, videos, all sorts of cool things, also giveaways and other just about everything. Al, you want to talk just a moment about the subscription program before we dive into the Orlando Magic?
Yeah, man. But first things first, actually let our listeners know that we actually have a giveaway going on right now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
because we launched this program once again, first things first, we're giving away a $150 gift card to the Orlando Magic team shop. So that's running from today that you're listening to this episode all the way up till next Friday. We're going to choose a winner next week on Friday. So our next episode of the Orlando Magic HQ podcast will be giving away and choosing the winner that day. But most importantly, guys, again, we're doing this for you guys. You guys love the Magic like we do. You guys are fans like we are, diehards. You guys want more content. We keep hearing this all the time. We're going to have an exclusive podcast, like Steven mentioned, exclusive videos, articles. So if you want more Magic content while at the same time supporting what we do, that's the best way to do it. So join us there. And I mean, we have the Discord chat going on as well. So if you want to get to know us more on a personal level, get our true opinions on certain things, the chat will be flowing. So we hope to see you guys there. Again, $5 a month to support us. If you want more exclusive content, that's where that $10 tier comes up. So hope to see you guys there.
Yeah, it's really cool. And actually, the first exclusive podcast already dropped. So if you sign up today, you'll get a podcast episode in your inbox. That's exciting. All right, fellas, you know what else is exciting? Magic basketball, and let's get into it. Brett, Al, this week is cool. It's the very last preseason game. The Magic play their first preseason home game versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Brett, I'm gonna toss this one to you first, man. We've had 2 preseason games so far. Our third preseason game got canceled because of the hurricane. We hope you all are recovering well from that. But this team now has practiced for like a week straight since their last preseason game versus the Spurs. And they head into tomorrow's game versus the 76ers. What are some of the things you are kind of looking for, expecting, and just feeling going into this preseason game versus 76ers?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that, I'm going to be looking forward to. And of course, I don't expect, Nick Nurse to put out his entire, starting 5, play these guys extended minutes and, a final preseason finale game kind of the same sentiment I could say for Jamal Mosley, even though you want to continue to get these guys ramped up and ready to play together. But I really want to continue to look at some of the young guys and the opportunities that they're going to get. And I think right now that has to be the biggest thing that all of us Magic fans are looking at when it comes to this team. We know what Paolo is going to give you. We know what Franz is going to give you. We expect something night in and night out from a lot of these guys, especially the ones that are under contract that have been extended. Now we have an opportunity to look at Anthony Black, look at Jet Howard, and all of the work that they've put in throughout the summer, through Summer League, what they've been able to do in that game versus the Spurs a couple of nights ago, where they looked great. Some of the other guys like Tristan da Silva. I'm really excited to see how these young guys continue to come together, continue to play their role at an exceptionally high level, do what they're asked, and see just how they fit into this system.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, there's still a lot of question marks. Like the Magic also have 2 open roster spots for the two-way positions that haven't been filled yet. Al, like, kind of same question that I just sent to Brett. Like, how are you feeling going into this game? What is something specific that you are looking for? Do you even care if the Magic win, or are you just hoping for like good performances? Or, I mean, obviously both is ideal, but like, what are you thinking going into this, Al?
So I think for me, it's all about seeing the rotations. Just because we got a lot of minutes for the young guys the first couple games, that's to be
hmm
expected. But usually as the games go on, you see more and more of the true rotation kind of take place. We haven't seen it, right, because they haven't been able to play in a week and a half. So I wonder if mostly it's going to use tomorrow's game kind of as a prep for the regular season. So we're going to see more of the starting five playing together instead of 15 to 20 minutes. Will that be more like 25 to 30 tomorrow? Um, but most importantly for me, it's all about health, man. I want to finish this game with everybody healthy. I want to go into Miami next week knowing that we have a full team, full roster. We know one of our biggest strengths is going to be our depth this season. So we want to maintain our guys healthy and truly keeping that to our advantage throughout the season. Again, that depth. That's about it. But the one question mark I have, and I really want to see how it plays out, is did Jet Howard earn himself more minutes with the way that he played against San Antonio? So we've seen, Gary Harris come off the bench as a backup three at the moment. Does that continue tomorrow? Yeah, I mean, that to me, it's going to be something we watch throughout the season. I think Jet Howard's a guy that we all want to see. I think he's looked good when he's given the chance. So I want to see if he actually gets minutes tomorrow over Gary Harris, and if that means anything at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we could see that tomorrow. And then come next Wednesday when the Magic have their home opener, Gary Harris could be right back in that lineup.
Yep.
Just because that's kind of the weird stuff that we see in preseason, right? There's a lot of experimentation with lineups. There's a lot of, to an extent, even like holding back. Like they're not going to go out tomorrow and run their full play set, and like they're going to like hold things back. They don't want to give away everything, and they're going to probably slow roll some of this stuff. And that's partly probably why like the Magic and other teams look like things aren't super connected yet, or maybe there's not a lot of second actions and things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of that information as well. We heard Wendell Carter Jr. practice fully today. Had nothing holding him back. His ankle was, supposedly good to go. Obviously, that's why he practiced fully today. So will he get minutes? If so, like, will he play the same amount of minutes of Paulo and Franz, or will he just like get more limited to like maybe 12 minutes or 16 minutes or something like that? If they're pushing the rest of the starters up to, in the 20s. But I do hope we get to see a bit of a dress rehearsal, at least in like the first half, right? But yeah, like get that dress rehearsal, have Mo's practice a little bit tighter rotations, a little bit more with when guys are coming in and out, what the offense looks like. And I do think if we get that kind of dress rehearsal feel and Jet Howard is pushing for more minutes there, that might be a leading sign to something to come. Not sure. I also think like even if we see that, Gary Harris is someone that's built a ton of trust with his coaching staff and organization. So it's like, it's going to be really hard to know what that actually means tomorrow. The other thing I am looking forward to is, the second half of the game, likely where the third and fourth string players, the camp guys, come in and get a lot of minutes. Cause again, we still have 2 unfilled two-way roster spots that could be filled with someone on this team. Like, is it going to be Mac McClung? I'm not sure. I don't really know. So there's so many, still a couple of unknowns with this roster in that regard. Granted, my hope is I don't really care who gets signed to the two ways because I just want this team to be so healthy that they don't play meaningful minutes and we don't really need them, and it's more for like a developmental type situation. So that's kind of how I'm feeling. Brett, how did you feel today when you heard about Wendell Carter? I imagine excited, but him playing full games or full practice, do you expect him to be playing tomorrow, or kind of like what's your gut feeling there?
Well, when I had seen the news initially, of course I was excited. We had all seen him, get a little bit banged up, with that injury in New Orleans. And we were like, okay, Wendell, we know you're about to get this contract. Like, you've got to stay healthy. This has kind of been a big part of his career so far, right? Since being drafted, not really staying healthy consistently. I will say, I don't think it's smart to put him out there, even if he's fully practiced, cleared all protocols and was out there practicing at 110%. I don't think there's any need to put him out there. It's the last preseason game. There's no need to put any additional pressure out there on him. You don't want to have any kind of lingering issues or injuries. Let him have the night off. Put the rest of your guys out there. Maybe continue to experiment with Jonathan Isaac at the 5. Maybe continue to have Goga Batadze in that starting lineup if you'd like, where we saw the Magic have a lot of success last year. Continue to experiment. I think that's exactly what this last preseason game should be about. Not necessarily because it can't be a dress rehearsal, not because you can't tighten your rotations, but I really do feel as if the last preseason game is meant for experimenting and making sure you are able to get some of these young guys opportunities and reps that they may not be able to get in the regular season in meaningful minutes. So that's what I want to see from the team, and that's probably what I would ideally like to see from Wendell, is for him just to go out there, warm up, and not play tomorrow evening. I'd rather have him be at 110% in Miami.
Yeah, and we learned a lot about injury management through Jonathan Isaac over the years, and even Markel Fultz. Unfortunately, they both struggle with tons of injuries. And one thing that we learned, it's not always about how the practice went; it's how the next day goes. Do they still feel good? Was there any setbacks? Was there any inflammation that was not expected after that full day of practice, or that the game before, right? And that's often why someone doesn't play in back to backs, because they just haven't recovered fully. So, like, Al, let's just pretend that Wendell Carter does not play tomorrow. Who are you hoping to see kind of inserted into that starting unit? Yeah, to kind of like take over his minutes and play that starting center role.
I mean, it's got to be Goga, right? I think Goga has done such a terrific job whenever he's being needed to step up. And not for nothing, man. Like, I know Wendell's a great player, but when Goga's out there, he truly resembles what a big guy should look like for us in the starting lineup. Protects the rim, plays hard, rebounds really well. So he kind of covers for Paulo's, deficiency in rebounding a little bit. Because like, we know Paulo could do a better job boxing out, rebounding. Well, Goga kind of helps out there. He picks up the slack a little bit. Protecting the rim, like I said, a guy that just any dunk attempt, any layup attempt, he's making a play for it. So I mean, I have 100% full confidence that when needed, he's going to step in and do a good job. So if Wendell cannot go tomorrow, which I kind of agree with Brett, I'd rather just save him for Miami, keep him healthy for the next few days. Give Goga a shot. He's a guy who needs to stay sharp because again, we'll need him at some point. We know that Wendell has not played more than 60 games, I don't think ever, right? Maybe once. So at some point, you'll have to rely on Goga. So you got to keep him sharp. Tomorrow is another opportunity to do so.
Yeah, Goga's pretty great. And one thing I've learned about him and how he spent his offseason is he obviously trained with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and became the third splash brother, because now he is draining threes. We've seen him in practice. We saw one in a game earlier, preseason game. Kind of hoping he takes a couple here and there this season. It'd be nice to see him space the floor a little bit. He ain't going to draw defenders, but if he's left wide open, like, knock it down. Come on, Steph. Goga, let's go. Speaking of those random players that are going to have to step up, I'll kind of take this one. Like, Goga is kind of one of my X factor players, like you mentioned, Al, he is going to have to play, probably 20, 25 games as a starter, because that's about the average that, Wendell Carter Jr. misses per season. Obviously, I would love for just Wendell to be healthy this year, but I can't anticipate that because that's not the track record that we have. And we know and we've heard that, including in the Olympic, like getting up to the Olympics, his team didn't make it, but Goga put in a ton of work into his game this year, this offseason. And, this is just another full offseason that he's had in the Magic system, understanding what's going to be asked of him and being able to focus on that on this offseason. I feel like we've really seen that like transcribed so far this summer, or this preseason. Like he's coming in, like I think he grabbed like 11 rebounds in 9 minutes the other game, something like that. Like don't quote me on exactly those stats, but it was like very high rebounds in a very short amount of time. He was like, out of six or eight shot attempts, he hit like six of them, only missed two of them. Granted, a little bit closer to the rim, there's less chances for misses when you're that close and not taking mid-range or further out, which he doesn't really do that all that much. So but you could just tell like he is energized and he's ready. So that is one of my X factors, because his number will get called. And even if it's not for Wendell Carter, like Mo Wagner or Jonathan Isaac are probably not going to like be healthy this entire year. Jonathan Isaac will probably be on some form of restriction depending on how his leg and body are feeling. And he's also just an injury prone player. So like I expect Goga to come in and fill that role. They gave him a 3-year contract for a reason. So he's one of my X factors. Brett, who is one of your X factors? Like kind of unexpected X factors for this team. I don't want us to just yell out Paulo because that's expected. But yeah, what are you thinking as far as like who's a player that's kind of on your radar with that could be an X factor for this team this season?
Well, I'll tell you, I think the Magic's biggest X factor is Jonathan Isaac, to kind of add to your point. He wouldn't necessarily be my pick. I think if you're just looking at the Magic objectively, third person point of view, you'd say, look, Jonathan Isaac plays 65 plus games, and, he's playing 20, 25 minutes a night, whether that's coming off the bench or maybe they want to throw him in the 5 here and there. That makes a big difference, and that really changes the outlook of what this Orlando Magic team looks like, especially defensively night in and night out. But with my pick, I would say it's Anthony Black. We know Anthony Black is going to get minutes this year. It's without a question, right? Last year we saw him 69 games, 33 starts, just under 17 minutes a game as a rookie. And he looked incredibly poised. He looked like he was ready for the moment. He looked like he was in the flow of the offense, and he played his role exceptionally well. On the flip side, his partner in crime from the 2023 draft, Jet Howard, we briefly talked about him. We don't know if he's going to initially get minutes because we have that conversation with Gary Harris. Where on the flip side, we know AB is going to get minutes off the bench, and he has an opportunity not just as a very good wing defender, but really as a facilitator, as a guy who's a capable three-point shooter off the catch and shoot, and as a guy who's going to continue to grow, continue to get downhill, and just be a physical point guard with his size and his athletic ability. He has an opportunity right now to become one of the best and most versatile young guards in the game of basketball under a great system with great players around him. I think Anthony Black really has an opportunity to become the starting point guard of this Orlando Magic team. I'm not saying it's going to happen this upcoming season, and I'm not saying it's going to happen in the next couple months, but I do think he has that opportunity. And if Anthony Black can continue to improve and continue to just finite his game, I really do believe that he's the biggest X factor with this team.
Al, I'm going to pass this question to you too, but like first, I just want to give you an opportunity to respond to Brett. Like when you hear Brett talk about Anthony Black like that, what are some thoughts that go through your mind? In response to Brett there.
I mean, I think we would all love to see AB step up to that level, right? And become that starting point guard level, because we picked him, number 6 in the draft for a reason. At the time for us, it was unknown. We're like, what are we doing here? Maybe the front office knew more than what we knew about Markel's Fultz's shoulder health at the time, and that's what led to that move. We don't know. I'm hoping that's the case. And actually, Brett stole my guy, because I was going to say, AB was the guy
Hope you
that
got
to
a
me,
backup.
I do. So, but I do think that we've heard it all throughout training camp. This kid has looked great in practice. He's looked great both offensively and defensively. And mind you, he wasn't bad offensively last year. Whenever he took shots, he made them.
Mm-hmm.
He attacked the hoop. So if he can do that more this year, he's going to be special. So I think that we just got to see him play with more confidence. And I love the fact that we're saying, hey, the ball is in your hands now. You're no longer going to stay in the corner, take the open three. You're going to create for us, which is his main strength. That's what out of college he was known for. So now we're saying, hey, go out there, play your natural position, do the best that you can do, which is play make, and just be a great player for us, and let's see what happens. For it to be a starting point guard, though, I think that would take, unfortunately, I hope this doesn't happen, Jalen Suggs getting hurt.
Yeah.
Or the flip side would be KCP gets hurt, which he hasn't done very often in the NBA. But if he does for any reason, that's the only time that I can think that he slides into the starting lineup. Outside of that,
Correct.
I think he would be a sixth man, seventh man for us, and he will do a phenomenal job there. But in years to come, you never know.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Um, I did say Gogo as my X factor, but I'm actually changing my answer. I mean, he's obviously going to play a role for this team because he is. Yeah, we have a question later on. Maybe I'll go into this next, like who is our dark horse contributor, and maybe that's who I should label that. Goga is my dark horse contributor. A big potential X factor I'm going to say is just like a guy who like he's going to play a huge role for us and hardly ever gets talked about is Contavious Caldwell Pope. We signed him for a 3-year, $69 million contract. And if we want this team to take the next step, like, of course, Paulo and Franz got to continue to grow in their roles. And so does Suggs and the rest of the guys. But, Contavious Caldwell Pope, Kenny, our man Kenny, he's going to be a huge part of that reason because he brings that championship pedigree. He is a 2-time champion, and like he's still in his prime. I think he's like 31, 32, and he's a two-way player. We all had moments last year where we got frustrated with the limitations that we had with Gary Harrison, the starting lineup, who did a pretty good job overall, good defender. Kenny is a much better defender than Gary Harris. No disrespect to Gary, who is above average defender, but he is a much better defender. He's a guy who could sneak onto an all defensive team, almost any season. Then he's also known for his offensive shooting, and where Gary Harris is more of a catch and shoot guy, Kenny's got a little bit more pull up to him. He's like really good at trailing a lead guard or a big, catching a kick out, maybe doing a dribble or two and firing off a three or even pulling up from three, which is pretty sick. And that's just something that we didn't get a lot of from Gary Harris. And he also he's got more movement to him. So he's going to be able to open up the offense a lot more and hit those big shots. Gary Harris is not a bad shooter, but Kenny, Contavious Caldwell Pope is known to be a clutch shooter. Like he can hit shots in big moments, and he's done it a lot throughout his career. So we all tend to focus on these younger guys because there's a lot of growth, and it's fun to see development, and it's fun to see them expand their game and become these bigger contributors to this team. But I really do think there's a ton that is going to fall on Contavious Caldwell Pope on this team's success to get to that next level. And not just be like, oh, that's cute, they made the playoffs, but people are already talking about the Magic as like a team that are going to be a playoff team. But I just think in some ways we're underrating the impact that Contavious Caldwell Pope, Kenny, is going to have for this team. So, yeah, I want to give him a shout out because I just feel like he gets forgotten about, yet he's a huge addition to this team and a starter. But we all get focused on these guys that may or may not even be in the rotation. So shout out to Kenny. Brett, we're about to start the season. And there's a lot to still be discovered with this team. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions. And there might be questions that this team has to address in the middle of the season or even next offseason for the long-term future of this team. What do you think is a question mark or just something we are going to learn that we're going to have to address this year? I also asked I asked Al this in our subscriber podcast, what is a fear that you think we're going to learn about this team that could come to life, or just like a question that you have that we still need to figure out?
Yeah, I think I have to go back to 3-point shooting. I know the front office did everything in their willpower this offseason to address 3-point shooting, right? The Magic last season were bottom 5 in the NBA in 3-point percentage, 26th, right? Not going to cut it. come postseason time, we saw our deficiencies. When you can game plan for the same team, especially a young, inexperienced team that has not had any postseason experience or little of it, your inefficiencies and your deficiencies to shoot from the 3-point line were going to come back to bite you. And sure enough, it did. And that was our Achilles heel, and rightfully so. So they went out, like you said, they grabbed Contavious Caldwell Pope, incredible 3-point shooter, shot over 40% from behind the arc, both of his seasons with Denver. They draft Tristan da Silva. Who knows if he'll get minutes? And also, there's a potential that Jet Howard is an absolute sniper from 3-point range, and he could be a dark horse candidate to really improve the 3-point shooting of this team so far. But until I see it, I have to see it with my own two eyes. The Orlando Magic have not had a league average top 15 or better offense in over a decade, right? Not under Jamal Mosley, not under Steve Clifford, not under any coach the Magic have had in the last decade plus. Until I can see the Magic consistently knock down the 3 ball with just a lot more fluidity within the offense, right? I don't mind the looks that we get. Can we knock them down, especially when the game is tight and it comes down to the wire? Are you going to be able to knock down those jumpers? And I'm not going to be able to say that we've addressed it and we fixed it until I see it with my own two eyes.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge question mark, right? They have the potential, right? You have Wendell Carter
Mhm.
Jr., who is shooting from three, I think above league average. I'm sorry, fans that are listeners of the show. Like I don't. I'm not pulling up stats right now like I normally do. So I'm just like speaking off the dome. But he's improved a lot as a 3-point shooter and gets respect from the arc now, and has increased his volume. I think last year he was shooting about 3 or 4 per game. Then you have Paulo, who is not a great 3-point shooter yet, but has had moments and definitely can hit them in big moments. We've seen that. We do have the question mark on Franz on his shooting. He has shot decent in the past, but last year was a massive disappointment in that department from him, and we hope that contributes. I mean, it's been a disappointment in the preseason too. Let's be real. Not really worried about it, but I want to see it. But then we have shooting in the backcourt with or in the front court with Jalen Suggs and Contavious Caldwell Pope, both near 40% shooters, around that number at a decent volume. Suggs last year at 5 shots per game. Contavious Caldwell Pope is career average like 4.6 shot attempts per game from 3. That bench unit's got Cole Anthony, who can be a threat from 3. You got Anthony Black, super low volume last year, but was shooting about 39% from 3 on like 1 attempt per game. Can he get those attempts up? Can Gary Harris, who was a starter for us last year at shooting 38% from 3, can he continue to bring that spacing that he created for the Magic as a starter? Can he bring that to the second unit? I think he can. Da Silva shooter, like we have shooting. They just got to hit the shots and limit the turnovers, right? And that I think Brett is going to be a huge reason if they can bring this offense up to just being respectable, like just get to league average, right? I think that's what most of us would just hope and expect. Al, what's a question that you still have that you want to learn about this team as we get into the start of the season here shortly?
So 2 quick ones come to mind. The first one is Jalen Suggs. Can he be the player that he was last year for us? Because if he can, that's a lot of peace of mind for us Magic fans that are concerned about who's the third guy. Who do we go to when Paulo may not have it, Franz may not have it? And we're talking about shooting. He was special last year shooting the ball, like the confidence, the shooting stroke was amazing, and it was a surprise to all of us. The question now is, can he replicate that season, both shooting wise and also being that third kind of superstar in our team? So that's number one. Number two is something we didn't address and haven't addressed for years. To Brad's point, is also who scores, who's our scoring outside of Paulo and Franz. If they don't have it, where does our offense come from? So we saw last year where like Paulo will get double teamed. France may not have it that game. Who scores the ball? You would want it to be Wendell. You would want it to be Jalen Suggs. Unfortunately, they're not always the most reliable options. So that's where like KCP, I love him to death. I think he'll be a great acquisition for us. Great vet, great shooter, great defender. But I was hoping for a 2-wing that can also take it to the hoop, that can also, in clutch moments, create off the dribble a little bit. I think that's still a weakness of ours. We don't have many creators off the dribble that can score the ball. Jalen Suggs can do it a little bit. I think he's getting better at it. We've seen AB do a much better job in preseason attacking the hoop and kind of creating offense. But I don't think we have like a reliable guy that we can say, hey, man, Paulo's off tonight, or hey, he left the game early with an injury. You got to go out there and drop 20. Cole can be counted on. Unfortunately, we want Cole to be that guy, but he hasn't proven to be reliable there either. So I think that's still a question mark for our team. Like, who can step up and take over that responsibility for us? Hopefully, it'll be Jalen. Hopefully, it'll be a team effort. But ideally, at some point, we make a trade, we make a free agency move where we land someone that can say, "Hey, you're here to help on the offensive end." When these two young guys, these two studs that we have in Paulo and Franz, simply don't have it.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, and that aligns with my thinking too. With a question mark, a question that I have is because I was thinking about Cole Anthony. You mentioned him there briefly for a second, and he's great. Yeah, he's a really good personality for this team, someone that all the teammates really love and respect. He's a hard worker. He tries on defense even though he's got his deficiencies there. But it's like he has moments in every season where looks amazing. And then he has these long periods of stretches where he just can't get it together, can't nail a shot. And like Cole going into year 5, on the start of his second contract, can he find that consistency, right? Even if it's not that 20 point per game, like kind of threat off the bench, can you just be a consistent, like 15 and 5 kind of player as a second unit, like ball handler? We expect Anthony Black to have more of a ball handling on ball presence with that second unit. We know they're going to stagger Franz a bit, but can he just find some consistency with scoring the basket and is shooting, scoring the ball in the basket and is shooting from behind the arc? I would love for him to, find that, because like, okay, even if it still means we need to find an upgrade, like then we're not moving him when he's at his lowest value, right? So like even if you don't love Cole for this team, you want him to have a good year, because it's only going to help the Magic win more, and it's only going to increase his value around the league, his interest. You want people calling and asking, is he available? Or, if you want to include him in a trade, like you have a little bit more pull than if he's having a bad year. So like Magic fans, don't root for him to get traded, root for him to have a good year. So if he does get traded, there's more value that you have with him as a player. And the other question I have is, what does the trade deadline look for the season? Like, I know that is a long ways away, and I'm not asking for anyone to be traded right now, but this front office, they've made some big moves on deadlines. They've made some very minor moves, and then last year was the first year they didn't make any move ever since they joined this team, or this organization. So I want to see now that this team is clearly a playoff team, and not just last year a hopeful playoff team. What does this front office do at the deadline, and how will they approach it? So that's just kind of like a couple questions I have. We'll wrap up this podcast with this. I kind of already answered this, a dark horse contributor. I have one that I'll surprise you guys with at the very end. But do you have like a dark horse player that you're kind of like keeping your eye on, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it religiously for the people that have been following on Instagram, people have been following on Twitter, YouTube, all of our social media platforms, that I am investing all of my stock into Jet Howard. Like, I cannot overemphasize that enough. And it has nothing to take away from Tristan Da Silva, Anthony Black, and some of the other really good, young, promising, up and coming players on the Magic. There is something that I saw last year in Jet Howard when he would come back and forth from Osceola to the Magic, having interactions with him, watching the way he works with the coaching staff, how detailed he is with his shooting. And then, of course, what we saw from him in the Summer League, the body of work, him and Anthony Black in the gym every single day, working out. Jet Howard has so much opportunity and is exactly what the Magic needed to draft: a three-point shooter, a guy who is a threat from the perimeter, and a guy who, in Osceola, in 29 games, was nearly a 40% three-point shooter. Obviously, in the Summer League, shot 47.7% from behind the arc. He's exactly what this team needs. He has the offensive versatility. He can space the floor. If he can continue to get better on the defensive end, he's exactly what this team needs, and he would be an absolute offensive spark off the bench for the second unit. and I am thrilled to watch Jet Howard this upcoming season. I hope he gets a fair share of minutes from the coaching staff. I hope he has an opportunity to really showcase his talents, because if he does, I think he's going to explode, and that's why I'm willing to invest my stock in him now while it's extremely low.
Yeah, no, I mean he's good. He's gonna be fun. I have a lot of those same like interests that you do, and I think many Magic fans do. What about you, man?
So I'm torn between two. One that comes to mind is Mo Wagner. Not really a dark horse because he is going to get minutes. He's going to be part of the rotation. But I cannot emphasize enough how much of a contributor he can be to this team and a difference maker he is when he has it going. There's those games where our offense is just not there. And he comes off the bench and drops a quick 12 points on you. And you're like, wait, how did he score 12 so quickly?
Yep.
Or does it by playing hard, taking a charge at the key moment of the game, getting the crowd pumped up on a game where maybe the crowd's not all there because we're not playing very well. So I think Mo Wagner does all the little things that we need, to take this team to the next level. And I keep saying it. I think he's going to be a part of Orlando, for many, many years to come. As long as Franz is here, I think we'll see Mo Wagner in this team. But I think the little thing that he brings to the team, again, the energy, the willingness to play defense, even though, again, like Cole Anthony, some limitations there, but he'll take the charge. He'll play hard. I think those little things will help us. Those off nights that we don't have it, he'll come in and take us over the top to help us get that win.
He's a good pick, and there's also some question marks on how he'll perform with such a shifted second unit, and I'm looking forward to finding that answer too. A dark horse that I have, and again, I've kind of answered every question twice. I'm just gonna say another one. Corey Joseph, and no one's expecting me to say this. I actually am really looking forward to his impact on this team. A lot of it's going to be off the court, but I think we're already seeing a lot of it. Like we hear all the time, multiple times through training camp and preseason, you're seeing videos of him constantly, being around Anthony Black and Jet Howard. It's like it's people have said it's not exactly this quote, but like he's sticking to them like glue. And he's constantly around, constantly in their ears. It seems like he's already getting good chemistry with the team, and people are also talking about the other players are like, yeah, Corey can still ball, and he can still very much. He's got a lot left in the tank, so he'll likely get some playing time at some point. Injuries are going to happen to this team, and I'm looking forward to him coming in and being a contributor there. But it's like he has really bought into this role of being the third guard in the third unit. He's not going to get a lot of playing time unless something happens, but he still could make a really big impact for this team. In the locker room, in practice, in training camp, and then hopefully being ready to go when his number is called and just be a solid vet for this team. So I've loved everything I've heard about him so far coming in and out of training camp. So shout out
Steven,
to Corey
real quick.
Joseph. Yeah.
Real quick, I do want to add to that point, just kind of before we wrap up that topic
please.
too, because you had talked about, injuries are kind of inevitable with this team. It's a long 82-game season. We know guys on the depth are going to eventually have their opportunities to get some consistent minutes with injuries. But adding to that point is because Jonathan Isaac, I know you had mentioned it earlier about how his track record, and we all know this, is he hasn't stayed healthy throughout a majority of his career. He did make it very clear during media day, though, that not only did he increase his weight from 219 to 250 pounds, put on a lot of muscle mass, he said himself he doesn't feel as if he has any restrictions. He feels as if he should be fully good to go for back-to-backs, being available whenever the team needs him. And, of course, they're going to continue to evaluate that on a day-in and day-out basis. But I think it's really refreshing to hear the fact that Jonathan Isaac, one of the most impactful defenders in the game, went into this offseason completely healthy, no surgeries, and said himself how he had an incredible offseason, just gaining weight, putting on muscle mass, being healthy for the first time in a long time, and not having any setbacks whatsoever. So going into it with a completely healthy mindset, clear head, and really going into the season aggressive, I think that's going to do wonders for this team. And I just really had to drive home that point with J.I.
No, I mean, you're right, dude. Like Jonathan Isaac, like he proved a lot last year. He played a good amount of games. Some of the games he missed wasn't even really for injury. Like there was a couple of them there that he missed because he was like sick because the entire team had a stomach bug or something like that. So it's like he played in a good amount of back-to-backs too. He didn't miss every single back-to-back. He played in
Hmm.
back-to-backs. He missed some. One of the back-to-backs he missed was because they purposely like planned his coming back from injury to be on the second night of a back-to-back and not the first. You don't
Hmm.
want to come back from an injury and have to play 2 games right away. So it's like there is a lot more context on why he didn't just play back-to-backs. Yeah, and then there was a couple that were injury and a couple that were injury management, just load management there. But like I'm expecting a lot out of him too, Brett. First healthy offseason in a very long time. Last offseason he was doing a little bit of rehab and recovery from the
Hmm.
minor like surgery that he had at the end of the season of the year prior. So it's gonna be pretty cool to see how he is unleashed. I'm looking forward to a minute watching him early into the season to see how they're
Correct.
handling him. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Well, fellas, this has been 45 minutes, and it's preseason. We don't need to run the circle on topics we've talked about for the last couple of months. So I'm looking forward to watching the preseason game tomorrow versus Philadelphia, and then I'm looking forward to the Magic game starting next week on Wednesday. It's going to be so psyched. It's going to be so fun. First game in Miami, home opener versus the Nets, I believe. A couple of
Yep.
days later. Um, Brett, go ahead and why don't you plug where people can find you and anything else you might want to mention.
Yeah, you guys just super excited to go ahead and be able to cover this team under the Orlando Magic HQ network for the second consecutive season in a row as the senior reporter for the team. In order to follow me and to really see a majority of our work on all of our social media platforms, make sure you guys go ahead and follow me, especially on Twitter at the Brett James 1. Make sure you guys go ahead, check out our membership for our Patreon. That way you get exclusive content, articles, videos, podcasts, all of that good stuff. And of course, go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Orlando Magic HQ. We're doing a lot of great things this season. It's going to be an incredible year for the Orlando Magic and for the HQ network.
Al, right at you, man. Where can people find you?
Yeah, primarily on X. So if you want to follow me, at Al Magic HQ. Again, similar to Brett, that's where I add all my commentary, my thoughts on the Magic, and everything else basketball related. So find me there, and everything else is really mainly through the HQ X account, IG, YouTube, through our podcast. So again, man, we're excited for this season. Again, if you want Magic content, you're at the right place.
Yeah, listeners, tap into Orlando Magic HQ. There's something going on with our platform all the time. Multiple different types of content, whether it's a podcast, multiple podcasts, or written content or YouTube videos. You can find something weekly, multiple times a week through the HQ. And Brett's gonna be at the majority, if not all, the home games, depending on his schedule. Might even hit a couple of road games potentially, depending on how just the year plays out. But he's our boots on the ground. And then you got weekly shows with Alan, Anthony, and myself. So we're super psyched. And yeah, just check us out, like and subscribe to our shows. Consider joining our Patreon program, and we'll see you next week for the official start of the NBA season. Peace.